Hey everyone, Will Brink here, brinkzone.com. Hopefully a quick follow-up on my last video where our intrepid hero, me, was kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place deciding whether to keep my ATC 19s, which are fantastic speakers, or keep the Quad Revela 1s that was basically trying out. And the answer to that is neither, is what happened. So I will hopefully explain that. So as far as the ATCs, just briefly, I've had them almost 4 years, I think. They're fantastic speakers, as anyone will tell you, and if you've, watched some of my reviews. But I also felt that I had kind of outgrown them, and I felt like I wanted to move on to something else, for some various reasons. They're a little laid back. I felt like the top end was a little rolled off, and my in-room measurements actually showed that. Now, again, that could be partly the room, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But I've seen some other people's measurements directly measuring the speaker that suggests a little bit of a roll-off at the top end, which obviously prevents them, of course. Again, there's always a balance. Every speaker design is a balance of trying to decide what to emphasize and what not to emphasize. That would, of course, prevent them from perhaps getting a little rough, a little harsh, with some recordings and all that. But needless to say, I felt like I wanted to try something else. I wanted to also just try something I felt a little more lively on the high end, maybe a little bit more open, and of course, that type of tweeter in the Quad Revela was potentially just the thing, for that. And again, last video I kind of discussed why I decided to try it, based on the excellent reviews that I was hearing, especially the one from British Audiophile. I always like his subjective reviews, and he's never steered me wrong. So I thought, based on the other reviews, based on his review of the Quad Revelas, which I think he kept, I decided to try those. I have to say, though, I think those are excellent speakers. I think for some people they will be, they could be an end speaker where they stick with those for a long, long time. I did, however, feel that as time went on, as a couple of, as I had a month or so to listen to them, that I found that in my listening space, and this is a big deal that people, I think, kind of don't pay enough attention to. In my listening space and with my gear, I started to find they started to get a little fatiguing with certain tracks. Now, again, some tracks, as I said before, the clarity, the openness, the dynamics and stuff of those quads is jaw-dropping good. But I also found that with the music I was listening to, that started to get more and more narrow. I found myself listening to less and less music, because I did also find that, like I say, in my space, that they could get a little fatiguing. And again, and equipment matching. I think those speakers are especially sensitive to room dynamics and equipment matching. Now, as far as the room is concerned, like I say, my listening space is on the lively side, which means, and there's not a lot I can do about it. I think, like a lot of people listening to this, I don't have, I can't, as let's say a professional reviewers and stuff, say that they swapped out this amp and that amp till they found the right combination. They moved the speakers forward and backwards and sideways and outward, and until they got everything just right. I don't have that luxury in my space. I basically have the space that I have, which I'm grateful for, but I don't have the ability, the distance from the rear walls, the distance from the side walls and all that, for me, are basically fixed, and you can see that in my videos. Maybe someday, again, I did move from a much larger house in the Northeast, which I could do all that stuff, to a much smaller house in Florida, and I think next move, I'm going to demand a listening space, a dedicated listening movie entertainment space for myself. Be that as it may. My room, I think, I can only put so much in the way of like rugs and a couch and pillows and all that to sort of offset the liveliness of this room. but that's as far as I really can go. I can't put bass traps in the corners and adjust for side reflections and all that. It is what it is. I think the Quad Ravellas, I found them in my space with my gear, like I say, I found them as time went on to get a little fatiguing with a lot of the music I like to listen to. Not all of it. Like I say, what happened was I noticed I found myself sort of limiting what I listened to get the best out of these speakers, and that's not where I would want to go long term. So I decided that I was going to return those Quad Ravellas. Again, I don't want someone to take this as a negative review. I think for sure, in the right listening space, with the right gear, these are excellent speakers. But I decided in the long run, not for me. So those were returned to Music Direct. Again, I want to give a shout out to Music Direct. Great company to work with. No questions asked on the return. I didn't buy them. I don't buy things with the intent of returning them. I buy things with the intent of keeping them if I like them, and I only return them, like I say, on a rare occasion. If it just decides it's not working for me. And like I say, so shout out to Music Direct, great company to do business with in that respect. They didn't, give me any hard time. Obviously, I had to pay for the return shipping. I think that's fair. So Quad Ravellas are gone, ATCs are gone, and as you can see from as coming in from the title, I ended up with a pair of Ryan R610s. This is a company that I think it is criminal that more people don't know of this company. And I'm going to just, so not to waste anybody's time, if they don't want to sit and listen to me, go on about these speakers. These are the best speakers that I have ever heard for two-way stand mount speakers in my space with my gear. It's out of the way. So if you want to just ignore the rest of this discussion, that's fine. I will link below the blurb from their company about this particular speaker. I mean, all their speakers are probably really, this is their intro speaker. So if their intro speaker is this good, I can only imagine with their other speakers. But I will put underneath a link to the webpage and the blurb about the speaker itself as far as, materials used and the drivers and all that, so I don't have to go into it. I will say that these speakers are better than the ATC 19s in my space with my gear, and better than the Ravellas as far as I'm concerned. Again, maybe in a more optimal space or optimized space, maybe that would be a different, I don't know. But I will say that why did I get these Ryans? I had heard sort of through the grapevine over the years nothing but really good things about Ryan speakers. They've been around a while, actually. I think in the company even had some, in the 80s under a different name, and then they sort of pop back up under Ryan brand and so forth. They've been around a long time. I've always heard good things about them. I decided to take a chance, kind of a big chance, because I purchased them, with this was not like getting from Music Direct or Crutchfield. There was no returning these guys. If I didn't like them, they had to live up to the reviews that I had read, which if you look up Ryan speakers in reviews, Google them or look up speakers, the reviews are always raves. And I have to agree with everything that I read. These are the best speakers, bar none, in my space. They're about $2,000. They're not inexpensive speakers, but I will tell you that for what they do and what they can do, I think they would be put up against pretty much anything for their size, if you're trying to fill a small to medium sized room. I use 2 subs, as you can see coming in. I actually using the subs as speaker stands. Now in my room, again, as far as liveliness, as far as refractions and dealing with that, I can do a fair amount with the Anthem and the ARC room correction. And bass management and DSP and all that. You can do quite a bit to offset that, but you can't, it's not a perfect system. But in my setup, using the speakers in the way that I am, with dual subs, it sounds pretty good, I gotta say. And it measures fairly well. Again, the in-room response, even without the ARC, is actually not terrible. It's it's not the worst thing you'll ever see. But with once the room correction is added, like I say, it's pretty good. It's not perfect, of course. It's not dead flat, but it's pretty darn good. The only problem with reviewing these Ryan speakers is not using all the annoying, hyperbole terminology that people use, that the people roll their eyes at. I could absolutely do it because these speakers are just phenomenal. But let's talk a little bit about the construction and the design. As you can see coming in, they did them with the tweeters are offset to one side of the front baffle. The reason for that, according to them, is that it reduces the baffle interaction. And if you put them to one side, you reduce diffraction from the baffle. They also, as you can see, put felt around the tweeter. Again, according to them, this deals with captures or deals with early reflections off the baffle and improves the clarity and the disappearing act effect. And what I will say about that is I don't know if that could be or is objectively measured or not, frankly. But what I will tell you is that whatever it is they are doing works. That is to say, one thing these speakers do better than any speakers I've had in my space is disappear. There is no, as boxy, they are sort of a boxy design, as you can see. I will tell you that there's nothing there as far as any hint to your hearing, to your experience of a boxiness. They really do just disappear, and it's pretty impressive. And they do so, like I say, even better than the ATCs, which cost almost double. They're close to it. Now, the felt around the tweeter is kind of an old school approach. A lot of other brands use absorbent materials, on their front baffle. You just don't see it. If you went, I know like Vandersteen and Wilson and some other companies, maybe mid to higher end companies, will often use a absorbent material of some kind on the front baffle. It's just not as sort of obvious. It's probably color match and all that. But you go poke at it, you'll often see. And again, all I can say is it works. I'm sure, obviously, again, other factors are the material of the tweeter, the crossover, and all that are all part of this. But I will say that whether what they're doing is not objectively testable or not, I don't really care. What I can tell you is they sound phenomenal. That's what I'm trying to tell you. The sound staging, like I say, the disappearing act, these are some of the most room-friendly, capable speakers I've ever listened to. And what I also mean by that is that they do pretty much everything well. There is no music type that I have put through these speakers that they don't sound good, and there is some music that is just scary good, like spooky good, as far as, again, clarity and staging and dynamics and that type of thing. I can't recommend them enough. And like I said, I think that the fact that maybe Ryan is not as well known as they could be is criminal. Like I said, even I've always usually found that most stand mount two-way speakers are sort of really good at some things, not so good at other things. And frankly, I can't really say there was any type of music that I have put through the Ryan speakers that I didn't think they sounded really good. Too spooky good. Obviously, and like I said, I think they are particularly room friendly. That's obviously a real plus. The build quality is really just outstanding. I will say that they've got solid copper binding posts. They weigh, they're almost 35 pounds. I mean, and again, this may not be this is not an objective measure of sound quality per se, but I will say that it is quite obvious the amount of internal bracing is really considerable. The knock, quote unquote, good old fashioned knock test is the deadest thing I've ever heard. And they claim on their website that they used a Klippel distortion analyzer to optimize the drivers, and of course optimize the resonance of the boxes and all that. And I tend to believe them. What else can I say? So that, yeah, again, I'm not gonna go on and on. I would read some of the other reviews, and all I will say is that I support and reiterate other reviews of these speakers. Their balance, their tonal character is so neutral. The tweeters are just a thing of art. I have to say, these tweeters strike a balance between being super revealing yet never harsh. Again, they never get fatiguing. And so I would say that the engineering, the design, of these speakers by the people at Ryan is clearly notable and noticeable in your experience. So, if I had anything, I have very, very little negatives to say about these speakers. From a audio perspective, I have nothing negative to say. And if you saw my review of the ATCs, not a lot negative, maybe a couple little things here and there occasionally. Again, I did say about the ATCs and the quads that they were not very forgiving of poor recording materials. And again, the Ryans are surprisingly forgiving of mediocre materials, yet absolutely shine with, high quality masters and recordings, just shine. But they don't beat you to death at all with, so-so recordings. Again, I think that's a big deal. I think for a lot of people really appreciate that. I will say, I'm going to say the sort of usual stuff, almost goes without saying, but I probably should say it anyway. I noticed no stress with these speakers in terms of higher SPL. Higher SPL for me is 100 dB with maybe a 105 dB peak, and for me that's way up there. I don't really like to turn music up that loud. I mean, actually, you know what? I'm probably even exaggerating. Let's call it 95 dB with a 100 dB peak. That's probably more realistic. That's loud for me. That's as loud as I'm going to get. And I found no stress, no harshness, no compression with these guys. The other thing I like about them a lot, they do a really good job, which is important to me, is they also sound good at lower listening volume. I don't listen to music that loud. So occasionally, again, I'll turn a song up and, enjoy it loud. But for the most part, 70, 75 dB, basically I'll listen to music loud enough that I enjoy it, but I can still have a conversation with someone or something. And a lot of speakers, as I've pointed out in the past, don't sound good at those lower volumes. They need juice. Like the poster child for that is B&W. I've had 3 pairs of B&Ws. At higher volumes with some juice, they can sound really good. I always found, however, B&Ws at lower volumes were just very uninvolving and flat. So these speakers do an excellent job either at higher dB, higher volume, higher juice, or lower. Again, no complaints. A+ there. So that's where I stand with the Ryan speakers. Highly recommended. Go check them out. I have 2 minor complaints, then, like I say, and it's not audio. In the price range, the 2 things. One is very minor, but I'm going to say it anyway. The screws that they use with the speakers are just standard screws. They're like standard, hex screws. Or they're not even hex. They're, Phillips screws. And I think at this price point, they could have used, a nicer, like a hex screw or something a little fancier visually. Not a big deal, but I'm just going to say it. The slightly bigger complaint I do have is that the grills are a pop-on type. They're not magnetic. They're a pop-on, and they're actually quite stiff. Now, most speakers, unless they say otherwise or designed otherwise, are designed to be listened to with the grills off. And I didn't see anywhere where they said otherwise with the Ryan. So as a general rule, if a company doesn't say otherwise, you should take the grills off. And I basically find the grills, the Ryan sound best with the grills off. And then, when I'm done, I do put them back on. So it's not a minor thing for me with speakers to, want to be able to easily pop grills on and off and not be pushing on the little thumb things and all that. So I think in this price range, and I think considering the overall otherwise excellent high-end build quality of these speakers, that they definitely could have done some magnetic grills on these bad boys. Obviously not a deal breaker. I definitely see myself keeping these speakers for a while. Now, I know famous last words is a classic audiophile thing to say that, and 6 months down the line or whatever, you get that itch, or some super sale comes on or something. I think these guys will stick with me for a while, just like the ATCs. Like I say, I was a good 4 years before I started to get that itch that I wanted to try something else, and I'm glad I did. So I think that's all I have to say. Let me know what you think. Sub up, please. Obviously, I'm not a professional reviewer, as you can tell from this, but I am a dedicated audiophile who's been following the biz and enjoying my music for 40 years or so, ever since I was a kid. And I won't be giving up my day job and doing this as a professional. Obviously, my day job is as a nutritional scientist and writer and consultant and all that. But I hope this is something you wanted to hear. And do not, if this price range and a two-way stand mount is in your future, do not overlook the Ryan speakers. You will be doing yourself a big disfavor by not putting those on your super-duper short list. Okay, that's all I got to say, and I'll see you guys on the Brink Zone.